All right, let's get the screen shared on what we're doing here. All right. Can everybody see the screen, the full screen of the PowerPoint? If you can't, give me a thumbs up. Yay, I'm seeing that. Lovely. All right. So what we're talking about today is from the book, The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. And it is by Gary Chapman and Paul White. And their whole thought process is to try to empower people or empower organizations through encouraging people. So, I'm having a little trouble. There we go. So what is this based off of? For the most part, it's coming from the business practice of appreciative inquiry, okay? And I'm going to lower this just a little bit because I can't see. Okay. So it's the appreciation inquiry. So what exactly is that inquiry? It's the positive approach to leadership and development and of organizational change, specifically to boost innovation among organizations and apply appreciative inquiry for best practices, strategic planning, and to build an organizational culture. So I kind of took most of this book as a way to build a better appreciative culture for your organization, and to try to make it better from the ground up. So specifically, the book for 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace is kind of a morph between Gary Chapman and Paul White. Gary Chapman became known for his book on the 5 love languages. You all probably remember that. It was a pretty big thing. And so that has been used by a lot of counselors to help people improve their personal relationships. Gary White has also done extensive work on their appreciation or appreciative theory inquiry. And so the book is kind of a collaboration of these two processes coming together, both making it more personable, as well as proving points as to why more organizations and how this can work in a bigger work setting. And so appreciation in the workplace, a lot of people kind of have this false assumption that appreciation is kind of this touchy-feely, make people feel good kind of scenario that doesn't really fit in a workplace environment. And that's what this book is working to show, is that it's not really so much touchy-feely. It can be, because everybody in the workforce has different personality traits. Some people are more touchy-feely than others. But for the most part, it's a good communication plan to gain an understanding and to provide a better lens of appreciation and understanding for your company. So what the benefit is that authentic appreciation is a win for all stakeholders, okay? So improvement in overall organization function improves. You get decreases in employee turnover. It creates a more positive work environment, which, hey, after COVID and everything else, we need all the positive we can get, right? And it increases attendance for employees, and your productivity improves, and customer satisfaction ratings also improve. So it's a benefit to the whole organization. And so one of the big beliefs that you find is that a lot of managers believe that people leave a company for more money. 89% say that we lose employees for money. The fact is, at least in America, 64% of Americans leave their jobs because they don't feel appreciated. So another issue with that is staff turnover. Okay, staff turnover is one of the biggest causes for decline in productivity and morale in both the private and public sectors, okay? The less an employee feels engaged with their work, the less satisfaction they have with their job, then that leads them to do minimal work. You know, you start phoning it in, showing up, just doing the motions, and then you start looking for things on the horizon to switch to. The big thing that caught me on these is the statistics of just how much this costs a business, okay? If you have an entry-level position who leaves, it's going to cost the company 30 to 50% of that person or position's annual salary for that year to replace that person, okay? If you have a mid-level employee that's going to cost the company about 150% of that person's annual salary to replace them. This one really was huge. So if you have a higher level employee, especially someone who has very specialized training, you're looking at 400% of their annual salary to try to replace and get someone back in who can meet the need that that person left. So 87% of HR professionals list retaining employees as their highest priority. So this is a big deal, right? So why is it important? Okay, so this is not, there's more than just touchy-feely with this, like I said before. The big thing is that if you make someone feel appreciated, they are engaged. If they are engaged, then you're already working to make the whole process a better thing. Okay, you've got engagement of your employees is shown to be highly predictive of a company's overall functional success and ultimately their financial liability, okay? And this is true across the board from CEOs to housekeeping. When the need for appreciation is unmet, employee engagement will be low. There again, start to phone it in, you're not really doing the job to the best of your ability. And the more your employees are engaged and the more satisfied they are with their job, it means that they give more work at higher standards, which leads to more return on your investments as a company. So, but we already have a recognition, program. A lot of people spend, or a lot of companies spend a lot of money on recognition programs, right? 85 to 90% of organizations in the US have some kind of employee recognition program. Most of these are set up to recognize a job well done, or some sort of chronological milestone. And that's where 85% of them are, with length of service is their biggest kudos, okay? But they're not working. One, recognizing someone's service, years of service, doesn't necessarily translate into motivation for doing their job well, okay? The rewards that are sometimes given may not be considered meaningful to most or considered generic, okay? So there's no buy-in from your employees as far as the value of what they're being given. 30 to 40% of anybody in a group, if you have a big group of people, whether it's training, whether it's probably even on here, don't want to be recognized in front of a large group. That is the worst thing you can do to somebody. There are some people that actually like that and thrive on that, but then there are others that is the worst thing you do, is make them walk up in front of somebody. And so it's a good idea to kind of start to get a balance for what your employees would prefer. Recognition programs that are done, across the board also tend to only reward the top 10 to 15% of your employees. Many of these are also your top performers, okay? So the same individuals that, get often repeat recognition, which then causes negative reactions for other staffers over time. So this leaves a huge group of your employees who show up, do the work, contribute to the success of the company, who are never recognized. And so with these repetitive rewards for certain people, it begins to build frustration and cynicism for these other staffers who are not recognized. And so your workers start to become discouraged and they start to grumble and complain, and then gossiping goes up and your overall office morale starts to go down. So what does an unappreciated workforce look like? Workers become discouraged. No one cares or notices my contributions. Employees become negative about their work with increased complaining, grumbling, or gossip. Tardiness and call-out rates increase. Workers begin to feel disconnected and become disengaged. Turnover starts to rise. So the next thing we're going to delve into is, so now we're starting to see what problems people have when they don't feel appreciated. So there's a big difference too between recognition and appreciation. A lot of times recognition has to do with your behavior or the things that you did in the past. And appreciation tends to be supportive of where you're going to go and where you are in the present. So recognition focuses on your performance. Appreciation focuses on the value of the individual employee. Recognition focuses on behaviors that are good for the company. Appreciation focuses on what is both good for the company and the person. Recognition requires that you implement certain behaviors and reward them. And appreciation requires you to be authentic and individualize your feedback. Okay, so the single highest driver of an employee engagement is whether or not an employee feels like their managers have a genuine interest in their well-being. So here you can start to see where if you have an upper level recognition model that doesn't get down and learn about your staff as they are, then you can miss the mark somewhere. I mean, you can say thank you, thank you, thank you all the time, but if people get where they don't receive that, or it's not given to them in a way that they can take it in, then you're not going to get the information to them that you want. So one of the benefits of appreciation and directly related to employee engagement is that if you were able to find a way to convey personal, relevant, authentic appreciation, then you're going to, your employee engagement is going to go up. This is in turn as a domino effect. It's going to turnover is going to drop. Absenteeism is going to drop. Productivity is going to go up, which then leads to an increase in your bottom line, which also comes to an increase in your return on investment, right? So the results of an employees who are engaged in what they do, okay? They show up for work. They average 27% fewer days missed when you have an engaged workforce. There's less staff turnover. Businesses who have more disengaged employees have 51% higher turnover rates. You also have fewer on-the-job accidents. The more disengaged your employees, the more they're going to not pay attention, and that leads to a 60% higher rate in accidents on the job. You also have less employee theft. Companies with higher levels of disengagement lose 51% more inventory. Higher customer ratings. The more engaged your employees, the better the service they provide. And so you end up with 12% higher customer ratings overall in general. Greater productivity, again, engaged employees are 18% more productive. Increased profitability. Companies with engaged staff are at least 22% more profitable. So here again, why is it more than a big upper level thank you, right? Research has found that efforts to communicate recognition across an entire organization are ineffective. It goes back to what I was telling you about how to share things that people will appreciate. And it often backfires because it comes across, it can build cynicism in the workforce because it doesn't feel authentic and it doesn't really have value. It's sort of, no one wants a forced praise or hollow accolades, right? Ultimately, we want to feel like our contributions matter. And that if we feel like that they don't, and they don't have value to your supervisor or your other colleagues, then our motivation goes way down, right? And we begin to feel like that we're just a commodity or machine. So there's a big difference between these two types of thought processes in company culture. I thought this was interesting. Stephen Covey is one of the gentlemen that we're reading about. In his book for the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he states this: next to physical survival, the greatest need of a human being is psychological survival. To be understood, to be affirmed, to be validated, and to be appreciated. So how do you build a more appreciative company culture? Okay, you have to understand that everyone requires different things to feel appreciated. And it requires you to be willing to take time to learn what those are. So from this book, The 5 Languages of Appreciation, they build off of what Gary Chapman promoted in his work. And they've taken this and they've kind of tweaked it to be for appreciation in the workplace. Okay, so you've got words of affirmation is a way that a lot of people feel that they have value. Quality time is another active appreciation language. Acts of service is another one. Tangible gifts is another. And the last one is physical touch. And of course, I can hear everybody going in the background with all of us in higher ed, Title IX, right? So we're going to get there. All right. So words of affirmation, praise someone for an achievement or an accomplishment. Okay. So there's different ways that you can praise someone or give them words of affirmation. It can be one-on-one verbally. Okay. But remember, it needs to be effective. It needs to be specific to be effective. Okay, so if you're just giving accolades, hey, it'll come across as shallow and hollow, okay? You can do it in front of others, and a lot of your staffers would like that. They'd like to know that you appreciate them. And your colleagues would like to know that you appreciate what they do, okay? But remember, not everybody wants it done in a huge group. There's a different settings for different things for some of your people that like words of affirmation. Interestingly here, it can be written. But what I thought was interesting is that generational values come into play here. So if you've got probably Gen Xers to boomers, they want you to send them a handwritten note. That means more to them than just a quick email. You got your millennials though, and your Gen Z, they don't want a piece of paper. I don't know if y'all have kids that graduated, but my kid was like, why do I gotta write these stupid thank you letters? I told everybody thank you at the party. Why do I need to write this? So you've got the same kind of feeling. They would prefer something quick, an email, a text, and they're good. And it needs to be quick. So like if they do something and they're younger generations, if you wait as much as 3 days to give them a kudos for that, they have forgotten, moved on, and couldn't care less. Whereas older people, I'm okay with a thank you note, even if it's a month late, it still matters. But that's just something to think of or consider when you're dealing with some of your colleagues and staff. The next thing is quality time, and there's different versions of quality time, okay? So you've got focused attention. And this I hear a lot of, I can see where a lot of supervisors or managers are like, oh my God, I don't have work time to get what I need to get done, much less have to check in with everybody. And I don't have time. But the good news is that your employees don't want a lot of your time. If you come in and sit down and decide, and it seems like you're going to stay for a while, that just makes them nervous. Most of the time, all they need is 5 to 15 minutes. Check in. How you doing? How's things going? Is there anything I can help you with? Anything that will let them know that you're invested in helping them succeed, okay? But that doesn't mean they want you overly in their business or in your office or checking on them constantly. That causes other stress that they don't need. But when you do come in, here's some things to consider. Maintain eye contact, okay? You need to be present, okay? Resist the urge and impulse to interrupt them. If you're a manager, lots of times you're a fixer. So lots of times you need to let your employees or your colleagues get it out. Don't interrupt them, just let them say what they need to say, okay? And then listen for feelings as well as thoughts. And this kind of is, some people kind of really do this really well, and other personalities, this is a little bit of a challenge, okay? Observe body language. What are they saying to you outside of what's coming across verbally? And affirm their feelings. This doesn't mean you agree with them, okay? It doesn't mean that you automatically agree with everything they say, because you can totally disagree with what their conclusions are, but you don't want to devalue those, okay? You want to give them the knowledge that you hear them, you understand where they're coming from, and then try to discuss the differences on what your view might be versus theirs. Another part of quality time is quality conversation. Okay, dialogue. People like sharing their thoughts, their context, in a friendly environment. Okay, this is not the same as words of affirmation. Okay, this is being able to talk within your work group and be able to share frustrations, offer up suggestions, or share accomplishments without feeling like you're going to be retaliated against. Next up is shared experiences. And this is you're going to find a lot of your extroverts are on this bus, right? So a lot of employees really need that colleague shared experience to feel connected and to feel encouraged. A lot of these people are the ones that want to go travel to conferences with their other colleagues, right? They enjoy those types of things, or they're the ones that are saying, or, you know, let's go watch the baseball game or something like that outside of work. Then these are also your group that tend to really like team building activities. You know, there's usually a group within your colleagues and in your staff that's like, there's one group that's all on board for team building, and there's one group that wish you'd never talk to them about that. It's the worst thing you can do to them, right? And then the other thing is group work. Some people actually enjoy group work. And that's another thing with younger generations. We're finding that they like the collaboration and the back and forth lots of times on group work. Here, though, it may not include the supervisor. Here again, they may not want the supervisor to be involved with this. It may make them nervous if the supervisor's there. And it may be something they don't want to have a serious sit down and talk situation. Maybe they don't feel comfortable with that. But if they get to share an experience with someone, then that's enough to kind of make them feel connected to their team. The next one is acts of service, offering to help, okay? These people could care less about verbal praise and recognition in front of a group, okay? That's not their wheelhouse. If you want to help them and make them feel appreciated and heard, is if they're drowning or they're overwhelmed, they take in the most meaning is if you offer help to them, okay? Now, this is not to suggest that you need to constantly be bailing out someone who doesn't perform well or tends to put things off and then has, the panic finish. That's not what we're saying. But in areas of high stress and high production times, when someone's responsibilities have hit them and they are a little more than they can handle reasonably to juggle, then a lot of people really could and would prefer you offering to help them instead of just saying, hey, that you always do a great job. Because they're like, well, I appreciate you think I always do a great job, but I'm dying, okay? So how to offer help effectively? First of all, make sure your responsibilities are covered. If your own responsibilities are not done or in a position where you can finish them, then don't offer to help this person. Ask before you help. Don't assume and don't jump in that you know what they want your help with, because that may not be the case. The other part is to do it their way. Ask them, what do you need and how do you want it done? This is not the time to be bringing in, hey, if you do this, it'll be so much easier. And that's just going to make them so much more frustrated and confused in the situation. Do it voluntarily. Now, sometimes I know there are situations where other people kind of come up and say, hey, I think someone's struggling. Could you mind offering them help? Okay. If you can't be authentic in offering the help, then at least check your attitude, right? Because it's not going to help the person. They're already feeling bad that they're drowning and they're frustrated, and that's just going to make it even more hard on them to get through the process. And then always, always, always complete what you start. You're not helping them if you don't finish what you told them that you were going to do. Next, we have tangible gifts. Now, some people are happy with plaques and certificates. They are just thrilled to death with those. I have a brother-in-law, though, that when he got a plaque from work, he would take it, he'd take it home, he'd take the plaque part off and throw the wood in with his other woodworking stuff. He couldn't care less about accolades and certificates. All right, so there again, we're learning people's appreciation language, right? So tangible gifts, though, need to not be related to bonuses or raises or other somehow connected to compensation for a job performance, okay? It can't be like a tit for tat kind of thing. And it needs to be something that a person values. So here again, you need to know, what does that person like? Or, kind of get a feel for what they like. Here again, one of the big things I thought was so amazing in this is that only 6% of employees and people in general prefer or designate tangible gifts as their primary language of appreciation. Okay, so that's very, very few. You're going to have very few people that actually want a gift of any kind. 68% actually reported as their least valued appreciation language. Okay. Gifts that a lot of people value, gift cards, if you can get tickets to sporting events or cultural events. Your younger generation here again, they want paid time off. They would much rather have a day off with pay or be able to leave early or come in late or get to flex a couple of days as their present or their gift or their thank you. They would much prefer that. Some of the books pointed out that for gifts to avoid is candy. Many employees have health issues. Literally, one quote from the book was like, I really thought my boss was trying to kill me. I'm a type 2 diabetic, or I'm a diabetic and he's giving me a box of candy. Are you trying to kill me? So I was just like, oh my gosh, I never really thought of it that way. The other thing is logo wear, marketing trinkets, pins, mouse pads, calendars, okay? After a while, people start to feel like you want them to be a walking billboard for free. And sometimes that comes across as really insincere. Ultimately, anything that people can perceive is a leftover, impersonal, we had this leftover, have it kind of, it's not going to be given in the or taken in the method or in the way you want it. Okay, Physical touch in the workplace, not much, okay? Especially in light of Title IX with us, we've all been through the sexual harassment training. You have to be super careful with this one, okay? But it's still a valid point. You have groups that have been working together for years. They know about each other's families. So there's going to be things in the back and forth where there's going to be a camaraderie where some touch can be valid. So there's two types of touch that they went into in the book. And one is implicit touch. And this one's the subtle, fleeting, it's given kind of on an impulse without much forethought. Okay, so pats on the back, a high five, quick handshake, things that are celebratory. The whole point of touch is to try to convey empathy or compassion or some sort of emotional support. Okay, the other type of touch is explicit touch, and this one requires you to really think about it, and it takes a little longer time. So if you've had someone that came in and helped you really do something and it means so much to you, that might be one of those where while you're shaking hands or you pat them on the shoulder and you're telling them, I cannot tell you how much it meant to me for you to help me with this. That type of situation is where that would come into play. Okay. Most of us would probably never do this, but never rush up on somebody and hug them, okay? One of the quotes in the book was like, oh, I just need to give you a hug. And in the South, where a lot of us are like that, right? But don't do it. And if in doubt, always ask, okay? As for me, you all probably know I am a pretty touchy-feely, outgoing person. I grew up in that. And so they had a good way of bringing this up. It's like if you're kind of new to a group, hey, I'm a touchy-feely person, but if I know not everybody appreciates that, if me wanting to give you a high five or pat you on the back irritates you, then let me know. Okay. So just to be open and honest and do honest feedback with your group, and then always understand that the recipient is the authority of what they're okay with, period. So the core principles that we walked away from so far with the appreciative language guide here is that there are different ways to communicate appreciation and encourage others. Okay. Not everybody likes to be, appreciated the same way. That's your big caveat here. An individual will value a certain language more than another. The more effective communication of appreciation and encouragement occurs when the message that you send is sent to someone in the language they appreciate most. Okay. And if you send appreciation or encouragement in a language that's not what they value, then it's going to miss the mark. It's going to fall hollow. So how do we learn someone else's appreciation language, right? Not everybody is going to be like me and want to take the quiz and find out. And some people just don't, that's not their thing. But you can be willing to have a buy-in, okay, on the appreciative mindset and work. It doesn't take a lot of special knowledge. A lot of it is that you have to be open to the idea that everyone else may not think like you, may not appreciate things like you do in certain ways that you do, okay? And to try to understand where your colleagues and coworkers are coming from. Most of it is just observation. Some big keys that if you can, pointers that people will give you in the workplace as far as what their language might be, observe what they request of others, okay? If you walk up and ask someone, chances are it's like, hey, what makes you feel appreciated? Most people are like, thank you. They're not going to know how to express it as easily because most people don't. But if you pay attention and watch them throughout while your work interactions, you're going to figure out pretty quick, a pretty good guess. It's not 100%, but you're going to get a guess of what their language is. So look at what they request from others. Okay. If a coworker asks for help, they may prefer acts of service. Okay. If a coworker asks you to pick up some swag when you're at a conference for them because they can't go, they might like gifts. If another one is asking for feedback on that report that they got put together for you, was it okay? Was it what you needed? Did I set this up okay for you? If that's the case, they're probably going to have an appreciation language of words of affirmation. I need to hear from you that I am doing what you need. Okay. And then complaints. Listen to what they complain about or what bothers them. No one ever remembers my birthday. This person might like tangible gifts. Now, don't get caught up in, like we said, it's 6%, okay? And it doesn't have to be big, okay? No one's looking for major things, but little things mean a lot. Also, colleagues never have time for me. I can never make time with them. I can never get in with them. That could be quality time, is the appreciation language for that person. Or I can never get any help. That's acts of service. Or no one appreciates anything I do. There again, that's words of affirmation. There are some caveats. 25% of individuals tend to speak one way and receive another appreciation language, especially people that do gift giving. Some people love to give gifts. They take so much joy in that, but they may not want a physical, tangible gift in return. And then we also tend to work out of our own personal comfort zones, right? So we have to be careful of our blind spots, especially about not putting value on appreciation languages that are not in our wheelhouse. So we have to decide and be committed to be active listeners and observers for our colleagues, okay? So that we can actually start to learn what it is that they value and not be quick to dismiss something just because it's not where we come from. And ultimately, you can start anywhere. You just start with making someone feel valued and appreciated. Encourage someone. And they ended the book with start somewhere with someone. So it doesn't have to be a lot of training. You don't even have to read the book. I think a lot of it is just appreciation as a human being. Do you want to have any questions or feedback that they'd like to give?
K through 12. So on the next slide, I'll just really.
Donna, I thought that was very good information.